and cover all those events. Let's see what the front pages are saying this morning. I am Phoebe Agimehu, and we'll be starting with the Punch newspaper. The story just above the masthead: 17 billion naira contra debt for inclusion in budget, page 21. Obaseki: 7 APC governors meet Tinubu plan president's meeting, page 8. IPPIS, that is the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System. Federal government lost 800 billion naira paying ASU, says Ngige, page 7. And on page 10, your lopsided appointment will ruin Nigeria, Umar tells Buhari. All right, let's look at the stories below the masthead now. States to handle cases. NMA demands compliance from churches and mosques. PTF says Nigeria approaching phase 2. Cases pass 10,000. Buhari to decide on curfew. Churches, mosque reopening today. You can find the details on page 2. And there you have the picture of some persons carrying a flag with this inscription: fight brutality, fight racism, fight imperialism. And the story is that of London demonstrators protesting the killing of an Afro-American, George Floyd, by U.S. police officer and members of the Minnesota National Guard Security State Capitol building in Minneapolis on Sunday. All right, the bottom strip stories now. Ogun doctors strike politically motivated, irresponsible. That's coming from Abiodun, page 9. And on page 6, Lagos shortlist 9 contractors for Fort Mainland Bridge. While on page 9, Air Peace evacuate 312 Indians, hails Israel and China. On that same page, there will be a boom in childbirth 2021. That's coming from Adeboye. While on pages 4 and 5, outrage as hoodlums rape, kill Uniben undergrounded in church. That's a sad one. And finally on page 10, direct or indirect primary, I will emerge APC candidate. That's coming from Akeredolu. And that is all from the Punch newspaper. Moving on now, we have This Day newspaper, and I'll start with the story just above the masthead. Pantami hails ICT's 14.0% contribution to GDP. Despite pandemic, stock market gained 1.2 trillion naira in May. Federal government threatens to sue ASU over lingering strike. All right. The story below the masthead: Tinubu meets APC governors, promises fair primaries in Edo and Ondo states. Analysts criticize state executives for breach of travel ban. The leading story now: states may decide on reopening of schools, businesses, says PTF. And the kickers says with 3% fatality rate, Nigeria winning pandemic war. OPS anxious as Buhari gets reports, makes fresh pronouncement today. NMA PSN demand extension of lockdown, stricter implementation. 307 new cases move tally to 10,162, with 3,007 discharged and 287 dead. All right. The story begins on the front page and continues on page 20. And the picture: son of the celebrants, Toby, wife, Bamidele, the celebrant, and Ogun State Governor, Prince Dakpo Abiodun, and daughters during the governor's 60th birthday celebration in Abeokuta weekend. And that is all from This Day newspaper. Let's look at the stories from the Daily Independent now, but this time around I'll start with the leading story. CBN rate cuts pause buying interest, pushes bond yields down. Alright, Apex Bank reverses timelines for dispense errors reformed. Complaints. The story begins on the front page and continues on page 26. Return to roundtable or face consequences, federal government tells striking ASU. Page 27. And on page 29, Zenith Bank emerges Global Finance Magazine's best bank in Nigeria. You have this picture of that of President Muhammadu Buhari, right? Boss Mustafa, Secretary to Government of the Federation and Chairman, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, second right. Chikwe Ihekwazu, Director General, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, left, and another member during the task force briefing with the President at the State House in Abuja yesterday. And below that, Buhari may lift curfew, open economy and worship centers, as PTF presents report detailing next line of action to take decision on Kogi, Cross River. States, local governments, religious leaders to own next phase. Page 26. At the bottom, strip story, NAS can't be cowed by NDDC's blackmail. That's coming from the Senate. Page 28, and on that same page, police inspector goes on shooting spree, kills colleague. Let's look at the COVID-19 update now. This is for the world. Cases 6,229,776. Deaths 372,888. And recovery 2,779,488. Let's look at the update in Nigeria. Total cases 9,855. New cases 553. Death 273. Recovery 2,856. And active cases 6,726. The story above the masthead now, just before we go on a quick break. Edo 2020. APC NWC plans to screen out Obaseki. Tinubu, governors meet over primaries imbroglio. Governor seeking court injection against me. That's coming from Izeyamu. The story begins on the front page and continues on page 26. And on page 27, your lopsided appointment will ruin Nigeria, Umar tells Buhari. Says Nigeria has become dangerously polarized, risk sliding into crisis. And on that same page, which happens to be the last story, new satellite TV rattles DSTV, StarTimes, and others. And that is all from the Daily Independent. So viewers, we'll pause here today for a short break. There are more stories just after this break, so please stay tuned. We shall.
How do I get tested? If you fall into any of these previously mentioned categories, remain in self-isolation and immediately call your state hotline or the NCDC toll-free line on the screen. The State Ministry of Health, supported by NCDC, will arrange for sample collection and transportation to the lab. Where can I get tested? There are several labs across Nigeria for the testing of COVID-19, and these labs are currently rapidly being expanded across the country to reduce turnaround time from when the samples are taken to when they are tested for the disease. And you can only get tested if you fit the criteria as previously mentioned and a sample has been collected for testing by the state team. What do I do if my COVID-19 test is positive? If your result is positive, please do not panic. Many people who have the infection will show mild symptoms and they can recover quickly with just supportive care. And most of the cases recorded till date in Nigeria are mild to moderate and are clinically stable. What do I do if my COVID-19 test is negative? If your result is negative, it means that you are not infected at the time your sample was taken. However, it is still possible to get infected. Therefore, you should continue to practice social distancing. Wash your hands with soap and running water all the time. Use alcohol-based hand rub frequently and clean your environment all the time. Should I come to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control to get tested? No. If you fall into any of these previously mentioned categories, please remain in self-isolation and immediately call your state hotline or the NCDC toll-free line on the screen.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the newspaper headlines live from the ACNN studios in Abuja. For more on our catch-up programs, please visit our social media platforms all showing on the screen, and do well to download the VM Africa app or Prime TV or WeTV Africa on any app store to watch us on the go. ACNN is now available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV and Android TV. All right, let's look at the stories now on the Nation newspaper, and I'll start with the stories just above the masthead. Government to invoke labor law on lecturers. The story is on page 7. And the kicker, 600 billion naira debt incurred. Tension in Senate over 2020 budget. Lawan seeks truce, page 5. Policeman kills colleague in shooting spree, page 4. Zenith Bank, Nigeria's best, says global finance, page 8. Moving down to the leading story, federal government hands over COVID-19 battle to states. Buhari's decision on schools, worship centers expected. 20 local government areas account for 60% of cases. The story begins on the front page and continues on page 8. And lastly, Tinubu to governors. Primaries crucial to democracy. Obaseki, Akeredolu to brace for shadow poll. APC governors praise Sowonlu on COVID-19. Alright, the bottom strip story, rainstorm destroys houses in Kwara, page 26. And on that same page, Akeredolu not afraid of direct primary. And that is all from the Nation newspaper. Moving on, let's look at the Daily Sun now, just beside the masthead. This time around is on the Amajirai, and it says, Amajirai, we will defend our land. Vow Igbo youths. Page 28. Our leaders not ready to fight for Biafra. Masob. Prepare for self-defense as Setu tells communities. Alright. Buhari to decide schools, churches, mosque resumption. That's coming from PTF. Page 3. And the leading story, Umar to Buhari. Belong to all. Fearless retired Army Colonel state of affairs warns of imminent crisis over lopsided appointments. Page 26. We have the same picture we earlier saw in the Daily Independent, but the other picture is that of members of Abuja Correspondent Chapel undergoing COVID-19 test at the cancer's office yesterday. On page 27 now, Pastor Adeboye foresees baby boom after lockdown. Direct pastors to prepare for naming ceremonies. On that same page, Lagos moves to reopen own economy. While on pages 6 and 26, NDDC says, group presses for autopsy for executive director. suspects foul play. No going back on probe, Senate. And lastly, on page 2, Zenith emerges best Nigerian bank in global rating. That is the inside story. And that is all from the Daily Sun. Alright, we still have Business Day with us. Let's look at the stories. Right now, the leading story, 5 years on, still no light to see Buhari's power sector achievements. See story on page 27. And the picture is that of Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Lagos State Governor, flagging off the construction of Lekki Regional Road in Etiosa local government area of the state as part of the activities to commemorate his first year in office. Alright? Here are 3 steps Nigeria can consider in reopening its economy in order to protect lives and safeguard livelihoods. Find the details on page 27. And lastly, we have the insert story. Zenith Bank emerges best bank in Nigeria in Global Finance World's Best Banks Awards 2020. That's on page 15. And that is all from the Business Day newspaper. And so viewers, for this week, let us remind you that we have passed from death to life. For it is by God's grace that we have been saved and preserved through faith. It is not the result of our own efforts, but God's gift, so that no one can boast about it. And in return, we ought to be reasonable by living a life of good deeds, as this will give him great pleasure. And so, until we come your way again on Wednesday, remain blessed. Bye for now.
Welcome to today's Food for Thought. Our theme for today